Hey, good afternoon, Rogersville. It's really a big deal for me to remember to say good afternoon because normally I'm doing morning shows and I always say good morning. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm glad that you're here to watch us, and those of you that are going to watch us back later. This is Darin Chappell. He's running for the 137th House District, which is the eastern half of Greene County. And a little of Christian? No, just the eastern half of Greene County, which captures a lot of Rogersville right there. All of what we traditionally knew as Logan.
Right.
So on the Republican ticket, so that primary is August 8th. Second, sorry. Yeah, I knew that. August 2nd. Thanks for fixing me. There you go. So what on earth possessed you to want to run for public office?
Well, I was raised with a very strict equation that I was taught as a young man and before, and that is that ability plus opportunity equals responsibility. As someone who taught political science at Missouri State University, specifically I taught American government, and I focused on our foundational documents, Constitution, Declaration, Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers and all that. I know how government works, but more importantly, I know how it's supposed to. And so very often this just isn't it.
Yeah.
Plus I've got 6 grandchildren, 7 and under, and I want them to make the same opportunities be presented to them that were to me. I grew up here in Rogersville. My grandkids, those old enough to be in school, they all go to school in Rogersville. And I just want to make sure that they have those opportunities that the generations before them did. My family came here in the Turners area in 1837, and my grandchildren are the 9th generation to live here. So multi-generational hillbilly.
I'll claim that. Good old hillbilly out here. So I tell people that they want to know what it's like here. I said, well, have you ever seen the Beverly Hillbillies? And they say, yeah. I just said, well, we were neighbors before they moved. And
that's pretty true.
Kind of my tie-in. Well, but before you got into politics here, have you run? I haven't asked you, have you ever run for anything before?
I ran for state representative 12 years ago in Webster.
Okay. Yeah.
And I lost in the closest 3-way primary in that year. There was 1.5% separated all 3 candidates.
Yeah.
Not that I'm bitter.
Sure, of course not. No, not at all.
But so I did run 12 years ago and did really well. But then like now, half my hometown couldn't vote for me.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
And that's the difficulty of having Rogersville spread out over 2.5 counties like that.
Yeah, that's
right. So the reality of it is that because of my ties with Missouri State and the fact that I've done radio for so long in Springfield, Greene County, the side of the county line, is a better fit for me.
Okay.
And so when after I was done teaching at the university, I was a city manager by my career, and during my time as city manager for multiple cities, I never had a budget in the red, and I've never once advocated for a tax increase, not one time. I believe conservative government works every time we try.
Yeah.
It's just we don't have enough people willing to try, put forth the effort.
No kidding.
So with my background in the academic side and in the actual function of governance and leadership within those roles that I've had, plus my ties to the southern portion, specifically of Greene County, it just seemed like when this district was drawn, and it was my backyard, and I retired last year from city management, just seemed like this was the time for me to step up and try and take those conservative, constitutional, fiscal responsibility principles to Jeff City.
Yep. Now, as a legislator, is there any particular and I didn't tell you what I was going to ask you, so I might be blindsiding you, but is there any particular legislative agenda that you maybe have thought about and said, hey, these are some things I'd like to either be a champion of or a defender against if and when you get to Jefferson City?
Yeah, and people ask me that, and the first and foremost thing I'd like to be a part of, I'd like to help stop the dumb as much as possible.
Well, yeah.
You have 163 state representatives from around the state. and every one of them looks to create legislation to justify their existence to the constituents back home.
Sure.
We don't need 163 new laws.
No, we do not.
We just don't. And so a big part of representation in Jeff City as a conservative is saying, no, I'm sorry, that's contrary to the Constitution. That steps on the liberties of the people. That restricts freedom. And so I can't be a part of that. It takes some backbone. There's a lot of people that want to go up there and enjoy the dinners and make friends and get on the circuit and try to promote themselves for the next step. You know, I don't care about any of that. I just don't. I want to go to represent the people here at home, and I want to make sure that those liberties are protected.
And that's not always party lines either. Sometimes the Republicans can be just as bad about infringing on liberties if they think their cause is just as anybody else can.
Absolutely. And a classic example is this gas tax that they passed. And the Republicans did that. That particular tax, first of all, they asked the voters 3 separate times, can we do this? And the voters said no. And so they did it anyway. They went around the voters. But the Hancock Amendment says that they cannot grow the expenditures of government more than a certain percentage each year. And so what they did was they took that gas tax and they spread it out over 5 years so that it would slide under the door of the Hancock Amendment. So not only did they ignore the voters' voice, they purposefully avoided the Hancock Amendment. And to be perfectly frank, even though it was my party that did that, it's dishonest and it's unethical.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so one of the things that I do want to try to accomplish is stop the dumb. I'd love to be involved in a repeal of that particular tax.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. It might be a fight, but we've got term limits here in Missouri. I have always been at least a tacit advocate of statute limits. Like you can have 200 statutes on the books. And if you want to pass a new one, you got to get rid of an old one.
Yeah.
And get rid of those old laws. Some of those old laws, you don't need them. Some of them are just too wordy. Some of them are just flat out wrong. And so that'd be an interesting way to control government is to limit the number of laws you can have. Of course, they'll just amend them, and each law will be 100 pages long.
Right. I was the city administrator in Seymour years ago, and we were going through the code book to do exactly that.
Yep.
And in the process, we came across this bill, this code that said that sidewalks couldn't be more than 6 inches higher than the adjoining sidewalk, and it was from 11.
Yep.
And we're going, man, we don't remember ever passing that.
Right.
And so we go back and it was 1911. It was when the sidewalks were made of wood, and each storefront had their own sidewalk in front, and you couldn't have them varying more than so many inches. But it had been on the books for so long, no one had even remembered what it was.
Yep.
I've seen codes that require that individuals not have more than 1 cow out in the front yard.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
We're losing your microphone real fast. So I told you I thought I had a battery. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you mine right here for a second. And I'm just going to let you talk into that.
Okay.
And, sorry about that.
No problem at all. You want this one?
No, I think I can maybe work off of this one if I play my cards right here.
This comes under the heading of technical difficulties, right?
It does. It does. Somebody didn't plug in my batteries last time, I guess. No. This was 3 here. Take that one. That won't work. Oh, it will work. Over here. That might be here. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Kinda. We'll see. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
It's the wonders of live television.
yeah, no kidding. So there, that should maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I want them to hear you, not me. So yeah, I guess we kind of covered a lot of it. Anything else that you want the folks to know before we sign off here?
Yeah, I think that when you're considering a representative in any level of government, it's really a job application that you're looking at on the ballot. And my opponent is just the nicest guy. He really is. You're never going to hear me say a bad thing about him. But I believe my experiences, I believe my background, I believe my education, I believe my life of service, both in the military and in public service, just puts me in a position to be that better representation for us. And given that I grew up here, and my family's been here forever, I believe I'm a good representative of our values, our way of life, our viewpoint on how government ought to be. And so based on all of that, in this job interview of this campaign, I just humbly ask for the support and vote of the citizens in the Greene County side of Rogersville anyway on August the 2nd.
All right. Thanks, Darin, for jumping in here.
No, it's my privilege. Thank you.
Show. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with some more shows, a couple moms, some more candidate interviews. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, Roger.